In the 6 Days War of June 1967, Israel destroyed the air and ground forces of Egypt, Jordan and Syria. This led to the creation of Greater Israel, an occupation of Arab land which, on the West Bank of Jordan, including East Jerusalem, is not only still in place today, but is being consolidated on a daily basis by illegal Jewish settlement, in order to deny the Palestinians the space for a viable mini-state of their own. Back in June 1967, a young ITN reporter was the first Western correspondent to the banks of the Suez Canal with the advancing Israelis.
I am standing now on the Faradun railway bridge on the Suez Canal. Now the bridge here was captured by Israeli paratroopers late on Thursday evening, Friday morning.
I'm Chris Hart. The young ITN reporter was my father. At the time, I was 5 years old. My earliest memory of my father's television reporting is the way my mother used to keep me and my 2 sisters in order. If we were giving her a hard time, she would say when my father was on television in our home, "He can see you, behave yourselves." Over the next 12 weeks, my father will be presenting a program called Heart of the Matter, in conversation with real experts of all faiths and none. He will be seeking to explain to viewers the difference between the lies and the truth of history as it relates to the making and sustaining of conflict in and over Palestine. He believes that the knowledge of truth of history is the key to peace and stopping the countdown to the catastrophe in the Middle East. My father also believes that viewers have a right and a need to know where presenters of programs are coming from. What were the learning experiences which shaped their understanding? This program is an introduction to Heart of the Matter, an opportunity for viewers to get to know my father and his learning experiences. For me, it's an opportunity to find out what really drives him.
Well, now that the fighting has stopped, the fighting on the battlefields, the political diplomatic fight is now really hotting up.
One of the things that made you so different from most, if not all, of the other television and radio and newspaper reporters of your generation is not only had you access to the leaders on both sides of the conflict, but you also had a very special human level and enjoyed special relationships and indeed friendships with them.
Yes, that made me different, but there's one thing that also made me different, and you will know this because you're my son. I am still married after 46 years to the most incredible, wonderful woman. Most of my journalistic colleagues have been divorced once, twice or 3 times, so I mean, that's what makes me different. Now, among my souvenirs from my television reporting days, my most treasured are these 2 pictures. Golda Meir, Mother Israel, and Yasser Arafat, Father Palestine. Now, they are the 2 greatest opposites in all of human history. And I think I am the only person on planet Earth, probably, who enjoyed intimate access to both of them. And what I got from private conversation with them was knowing how they really thought and what they really feared, as opposed to what they said for political and public relations reasons. I also had good relationships with, for example, Saudi Arabia's King Faisal, whom I thought was the most wise and shrewdest Arab leader of his time, and with King Hussein, with Sadat, and a whole lot of people. But let me say that my relationship with them didn't make me sycophantic, and I'll give you one little story to make the point. I once made a panorama profile of Golda Meir when she was Prime Minister, and we filmed her and talked with her over a period of 3 months. Now, we both smoked a lot of cigarettes each day. So during one break in the filming, because both had a cigarette, we made conversation. And I said to her, "Mrs. Meir, if Israel doesn't withdraw from the West Bank, there's going to come a day when foreign correspondents, including me, are going to talk about the tramp of Jewish jackboots on Palestinian Arab soil." Now, in the Zionist mind, of course, there are only Nazi jackboots. Golda froze, and she put a hand to her heart as though to stem the blood where I had stabbed her. And then in a voice not much above a whisper, she said to me, "You, Alan, even you can say that?" And I said, "Yes, Prime Minister, and I mean it." That put a great frost in the relationship for the rest of the day. But it was actually weeks later when she signed that photograph in her own hand to a good friend, Alan Hart. Now let me just complete this little story by telling you, I sometimes use that photograph as a shield against when I'm attacked by Zionism. When I lectured across America coast to coast after my book on Arafat, when I was sometimes accused of being anti-Semitic, I would hold up that picture to the audience, read aloud her inscription in her own hand and say, do you think that old lady was so stupid that she couldn't have seen through me if I was anti-Jew? And normally that won me the house.
Well, I think that leads me very nicely to think about the way that you describe yourself as being with others, and especially the Israeli historian Ilan Pappé. For example, you say you're on the hottest front line to the war of truth for history. What is the essence of the truth as it relates to the making and sustaining of the conflict in and over Palestine as you see it?
Well, I'll deal with that by taking on the three great myths of Zionism's version of history, upon which the whole existing Judeo-Christian history is constructed. There are three great myths. The first is that the Palestinian refugee problem was created because the Arabs, 700,000 to 800,000 Palestinian Arabs, voluntarily left their homeland in answer to a call from Arab leaders to leave the field free for the Arab armies to come in and shoot, a free field of fire. That is complete and absolute nonsense. The Palestinians were dispossessed of their land and their rights by Zionist terrorism and ethnic cleansing, premeditated ethnic cleansing. And my friend Ilan Pappé, Israel's leading revisionist historian, his latest book is called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, and it documents in dreadful detail that. The second great myth is that poor little Israel has lived all of its life in danger of annihilation, the driving into the sea of its Jews. As I document in absolute detail through both volumes of my book, that is a complete nonsense. The truth is that Israel's existence has never, ever been in danger from any combination of Arab military force. Not in 1948, not in 1967, not in 1973. In 1948, for example, the Arabs didn't really want to go to war. And when they came in, their main mission was to try and hold on to the land only that had been assigned to the Palestinian state in the partition plan, and they didn't do that very well. They fought for a month, and then there was a truce. During the truce, the Israelis regrouped, and when the war started, it was actually about 20,000 poorly armed Arab forces against 80 to 90,000 well-armed Jewish forces.